Oh, yeah. So once again, I'm here, and I want to say hello to all the uh, people who watch this podcast. And so, as my last recording, I said I may need to go to Bangalore, but fortunately, me and Sergey Abbott, uh, you know, uh, don't need to go. So that was very big relief. And so that's why today I'm here to say a few words, to share a few words. And so, as I mentioned, last few days, 2 or 3 days, just not just fighting with the coronavirus because it hasn't arrived here yet, but all these strange bureaucracy, strange demands, strange arrangement, and very complicated how to get to Bangalore and all those things. And then eventually, okay, don't need to go. Okay, big relief. So that was decision was made last night. And yes, some of our monasteries administrators from Seriche, Sereme, and other monasteries, they went and they met the state chief minister, got photo, that is what they want, and and they offered the donations. And I've been keep doing my daily routine things, and today is Wednesday. So since Wednesday, 2 or 3 weeks ago, from Dharamsala, and they suggested to do the incense offering 10th of every month, according to the Tibetan calendar, and every Wednesday morning, because Wednesday is according to the Tibetan astrology chart, the Wednesday is His Holiness, the good day, whatever we call it, I don't know. And so they asked to do this incense offering. So I did this morning, and this morning was very, very different in terms of the sounding. It was very folky. And so, although at the same place and almost at the same time at 7 in the morning, previous two are very clear blue sky, and this morning was very dull, very, can't see that much further than the walls next to me or where the incense is offered. So that is when I reflect that. Now that morning, the monk who is helping me to cook my 3 or 2 meals a day, say 3 or 2 anyway. Breakfast, I don't know whether you include breakfast as a meal or not. If we include, then 3 meals a day. Sadly, as a fully ordained monk, actually must have only 1, but I'm having 3, so it's quite shameful. And so he makes the fire for the incense, and he took some photos. And after the incense offering, when we had breakfast, he showed me some photos. And that was, quite interesting when I reflect on the different changes. And again, this, all the conditions. Because when I look at those photos, and last night, one of my brothers who is also monk and Geshe, who came up in the evening, most of the evening, he comes up to meet me. And we usually have about 45 or an hour chat. on the roof, which is very, very nice, very cool, and have a nice view, although can't see that much in the evening and night, but have lots of lights. So at the end of our conversation, and when he was leaving, and we said, "Oh, very, very clear sky," because stars were very, very bright, and all those conditions. And this morning when I look at what you call the photos, that clicked. What last night's very blue in a very clear sky, and all those conditions met together and produced this very foggy morning. But now it's very, very sunny, very, very sunny. This is like that, but also hot. Outside is hot, but inside, it's perfectly fine. And so they did my routine things, and not that much preparation for or preparation or work for this event, this virus. But I read a nice article which written by His Holiness Dalai Lama, and it is on Times. I don't know, it might be Indian. In India, there's also one magazine. I don't know whether it's the Times from America or in India. So very, very nice. What you call the article is written, and very from the Tibetan's point of view, not very. There's a photo of His Holiness without glasses, and looked quite somber. And when I read that article, and there are several things, very important points he raised, and one thing which I thought is good to look at a little bit on that is we haven't discussed that much is courage, which is really important mental state. And he said this in this paragraph: this crisis shows that we must all take responsibility where we can. We must combine the courage. The doctors and nurses are showing with the empirical science to begin to turn this situation around and protect our future from more such threats. And that is really the mental state which I thought is important to. In Tibetan, it is called Nyingdo. 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 So Ning is literally, it means the heart, the power of heart. Top is the power. So power of heart, and here, courage, and that is really something what we need individually and collectively when we face this kind of challenges. And the courage comes, when we have the good understanding what we are facing, the challenges that we are facing. When we have a good understanding of the situation, of the nature of the things, then the courage will occur. Like, for example, in the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, the cultivation of the altruistic awakened mind, bodhicitta, which is, the art of the courage, then that kind of mental state to be enhanced, to be cultivated within ourselves. And that, courage comes in relation to the cultivation of bodhicitta. Courage comes full knowledge, full understanding of the self-centered mind is not something useful, helpful to oneself and to others. Right now, right here and now, in the long term, and that is this understanding then brings the courage to face these difficulties, and that is really something useful. Courage will not come just without any understanding. If we without understanding, then if we try to fight the situation, we may lose the goal what we want to achieve. And so this mind called courage, mental state, mental strength. In Tibetan, it's called nyingdo. And that can be, that kind of courage can be applied from the individual, when we face difficulties. Not only this virus that currently we are going through, but in our day-to-day life, in our everyday life. We need it. But that courage should be, comes from the understanding. And here again, the wisdom plays a big role if you use that term wisdom, or I have been using the understanding. And the understanding will grow, will come when we give time to ourselves. When we give time to ourselves to think, to contemplate, to analyze, to investigate, to observe, all these mental faculties will give us the understanding. The last few times we have been keep talking about that there are the different layers of reality, different layers of how things are related, how things are connected, and so on and so forth. More we have the understanding. In this case, this virus is now with us. And, now that's the reality. It is reality. So now how can we sort of, fight, or how can we deal with this virus individually and collectively, and using all what, as His Holiness mentioned, empirical science, some of those, medical and scholar, practitioner, and those have a great experience listening their instructions and, the advice to one's own benefit or the benefit of others, but also at the same time, mentally cultivating sense of courage. These can be overcome, as His Holiness said in his article. He said, in his lifetime, many, the adversaries or many difficulties come and go. And he said, as a Buddhist, I believe the nature of impermanence. That means they are not static. They are not going to stay here forever. And these are the understanding that will bring the courage. And with that, I want to read another quite nice, quotation. This is from, again, I'm reading this text. It says, circle of doors. Quotation from an American lady called Helen Keller. Keller. Whether I'm pronouncing right or not, I don't know. So, quote, when one door of happiness closes, another opens. But often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one which has been opened for us. And when I read this, the quote, and I check, who's this lady? And a very, very interesting story. And she was deaf and blind, and therefore she can't have the normal the things that we have through seeing the eyes, hearing the sounds. We can do so many things because of these two faculties, but she can't. But in her lifetime, she had achieved tremendous, she was a political activist, and she was all those things. So that is when somebody wrote about her, courage and determination. Saying, I can do it. Because although, she was at the quotation, one door, because she can't, like us, she can't see, she can't hear, that kind of part of the possibility is closed. Nevertheless, there are other faculties with us. There are other facilities. There are other conditions, the facilities are around us, and use them. And she had achieved, tremendously, in her lifetime. Not just they said she was the first person to achieve without sight and hearing, achieved to have the BA degree, undergraduate. So that's her personal, but it seems she had written lots of books. So internationally, she had done lots of work. That is really the courage, Mingdo in Tibetan. When we say, oh, I'm weak, I'm blind, or I can't hear in her situation, so I can't do that, then lack of courage or lack of that strength, mental strength. In Tibetan, that I mentioned, say the Nyingdo, which is really something very, very, important. Along that, another important in our lifetime, we have seen, this amazing nun, Mother Teresa. Again, that is courage. Taking care of the most needed people in the society, where those days the people who have that that illness, those people are completely abandoned by the family, by the society, and she took care of that, and those are the courage. In Tibetan, those are the Nyingdo, and again, have to get that kind of courage is very much due to the understanding. I'm sure she have, like Mother Teresa, she had understood. If she take this, this action, this amazing taking responsibility, she can do it. She can get help. She can get support, and how to do it, and the courage comes with that, and that is really something. Then very important one, that quite often His Holiness, again, he says in today's, what you call the article, hope and courage are really, really two important mental faculties that we should, cultivate, enhance, And in fact, the prayer, the article itself is titled saying, the prayer alone is not enough, or something like that. I want to show you what he said. Yeah, the title of the article is this: prayer is not enough. That is the Dalai Lama on the why we need to fight the coronavirus with compassion. And His Holiness actually, prayer is not enough. And this is he says very often. He says very often to the to the people who follow, the people who have a spirituality, and just to say not just stay in some kind of in a bubble of prayer, or bubble of just do things. Of course, prayers are really helpful, useful, to encourage, to bring inspiration, to bring sense of blessing, or sense of really something you are not alone when we face this kind of situation, and say the prayer and so forth. But His Holiness quite often says this kind of very strong statement. We must act. We must act. So to do the action, then we need strength, mental strength, nyingdo, the courage. And this is what here, there are very nice, what you call the quotations. One quotation, very nice quotation in relation to the courage, is that amazing, famous Plato in Greece. There's a short quotation. Courage is knowing what not to fear. Courage is knowing what not to fear. So that is, when you have the courage, for example, again going back to the the people who are practicing bodhisattva, in that journey, and there's a nice 4 lines by one of the pension Lama, Pension Lobsang Chögyен, and in his Guru Puja, a small booklet, and in that Guru Puja, last part of the Guru Puja is put together entire stages of the path, from the beginning to the end in the sense, to the process to experience full enlightenment. And when he was describing, one of those 6 perfections, and that is usually, talk about that is, the relation to the enthusiasm or joyous effort. Quite often, those are the terms used in Tibetan. Is zundu parjin, zundu. So even if I need to remain in a hell realm for eons, not to lose the courage to stay in hell for eons, to work for the sake of others, not to losing the courage. I can't remember entire the verse, but that is the main Ningje Migyo. Ningje is the compassion. The compassion won't be lost. Changju choksunbe, zundu pajin sopa chinju. Menang keba jazu nekwe. So that sort of things, really something, and as I mentioned earlier, there's no fear when the courage is cultivated from the understanding. then same time as here, Plato says there's no fear. Although there are difficulties, there are challenges, no doubt, but for example, just talk a little bit about what's happening now. These doctors, nurses, cleaners, and all those people who involved to deal with the current virus situation. Of course, the works are very, very difficult work. Normally they wear very, thin and very light and clothes. Now they are wearing 2-3 different protections, and not that easy to walk. Even those simple routine things are become more difficult. Of course they are difficult, but the mental strength is not lost, not diminished. It's still there. And that is what talking about courage, because they understand this is the time, not back down. This is the time to work together. This is the time to give their knowledge or their expertise, because the many people are suffering, losing their life, families are in it, difficult, and so those understanding brings the strength, and that is really it is courage, and therefore we all have that mental state, the courage, but we need to enhance them. We need to bring them in a more forefront through the the meditation, through the contemplation, through the reflection, and also through doing the practical things. Practical things, which in Tibet, I'm sure you have in English too. In the Tibetan, there's this in the literature, batik. Batik is the stepping stone. So to reach to the other side, then traditionally where there's no bridge or anything, they put different stones, not to touch their feet to water. They put different stones, then they will reach. So similar to that, these mental qualities will come bit by bit by bit. And as His Holiness said very clearly in here, we will see the end of this difficulty, but it is not the how to experience, how to reach the end is not just put your hands in your head and then give up. Not in that way. Do all our best to work together, and that's really. This morning when I read, somebody sent me this article, and when I read that, I thought that is really something important. It is not something mysteries, these kind of mental strengths. It's not some kind of vague. As I mentioned, this lady Helen Keller. It had happened in the past, and it is happening right here now within our society, within our community. This in English, that expression I like very much. Unsung hero. It's called unsung hero. Yeah, and that is really. As some of you have heard this before, many years ago in UK, in Channel 4, there is a program. Now I forgot that program name, but the program was really very much focused to those unsung heroes, what they're doing in the community level. And the one thing which really struck me and really admired me was in Scotland. I think it's in anyway, in Scotland, not in a rich area, but in a poor area. There was a man. His day job is, bin collector, collect the bin and empty it. And so his day job, gave him an opportunity, and he got this amazing, brilliant, and also heart and skill. So he collects all those thrown away bicycles, broken, unbroken, and he takes, instead of dumping with the other rubbish, he takes most of them, he takes back to his place, and he repair them, put different parts to the different, and then make a nice bicycle. And he takes that to those poor family who have kids, and he gives them. And when I saw that program, that really, really inspired me. And it very, people who look at from the what you call the environment, the ecology, and it is perfect. It's not throwing away, saving the bits. And then the next time he find another bike, that bits may not be there. He got it that and put it, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, from the people who are practicing good heart, from that point of view, it is amazingly good heart and skill. So from many different aspects, when I saw that, watched that, it's very, very perfect. There's no self sort of interest. He never takes money. He just go and give it to those poor family who don't have that many, have several. Some family have a few kids and don't have bike, and he give to them, and that sort of things. And but it needs that sort of skill, understanding, and that will bring the courage. Okay, I think that might be enough. Yeah. Anyway, I don't have virus, but God is something here. This is my ginger, because my sister-in-law, she grows ginger just for their own use, not to sell. I mean, there are many big fields, ginger fields. Disaster. Really, so many chemicals are used, different chemicals. But last few years, she grows small plots. She grows ginger and chop it and dry. And so this is ginger from her field. And I'll take this. Anyway, so thank you. Thank you for listening. And, yes, as I mentioned at the time, as His Holiness clearly mentioned in here, we will overcome this, difficulties. And from our experience, hopefully we will become wiser and more compassionate and, work for others. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah.